Hi! It says you are live. We are live with Better Than Sex. My name is Julia Reed Nichols.
And I am Kitty Cat DeMille, and we are here to discover what is better than sex.
So far, nothing,
Yes.
but we try to figure it out each and every week.
Yes. So, this one is just the two of us. So,
Just the two of us. You and I. I love 90s music. I kind of miss it sometimes. I listen to it when I clean.
I have a playlist that I made my girlfriends from college when we did a reunion last year, and it's all music from like 1997 to like 2003. So it's like every time I play it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like J-Lo and Ja Rule music. Which is, by the way, good for J-Lo. I follow her on Instagram, and she just looks like she's having the best time at 50.
Yeah, I mean, I think like 50 is not a bad number for her. Life just keeps getting better with age for J-Lo. Like she's really mastered this like living bigly and boldly and abundantly thing. It's pretty awesome.
Yes, exactly. She's like doing TikToks with like her kids and A-Rod's kids together, and like her and A-Rod like do like where they like switch clothes and they do videos where like, you know, it's just like silly stuff that I'm like, oh, good for you for having the time to do this and like the fun to do it with. So
yeah, I definitely have not gotten into the TikTok. I'm aware it is there. I kind of and this is not to say anything against the people who founded TikTok, but I kind of hope it goes the way of Periscope, where it like pops up and vanishes real quick.
You're hedging your bets closer to this as because you know the whole controversy about their servers are in China.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. So in the last month, apparently, and I'm going to get this wrong because my brother-in-law explained it to me. But
okay,
the point is that it's a national security breach because anything you do runs through the servers in China, and the way that the Chinese government states it, they're allowed to look at everything that goes through because it's China and they're a communist state. So it's becoming a question. It's becoming a question of national security. So TikTok might be shut down in the next couple of weeks, which will benefit you.
Yeah. Well, and can I also just say something though that's kind of sad? And I don't know if this I was at an air show maybe last October, and every single special forces unit was announcing to follow their TikTok account. Like there was the para rescue unit.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm actually wearing a I'd rather go commando shirt right now. What they're saying is go commando. Mm-hmm. So they kept being like, find us at TikTok at go commando, right? And then like now that you say that, I'm like, you dummies. Like wasn't there somebody whose job it was to
I mean, and I could have the details wrong, but my understanding is that TikTok is like a huge national security risk. So like they're very much talking about like jumping off of it for pretty much the country as a whole. So
well, I'm glad I never jumped on it then. Although I'm not 100% confident like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all the other things are any better. I think to a certain extent we've all kind of resigned ourselves to
I agree. I agree. I have conversations with my military friends and I'm like, dude, you can see I post every fucking thing in the world on like my Instagram, especially my Instagram story, where I'm like, here's a picture of my cat. Here's another picture of my cat. Here's what I had for dinner. Like,
I don't know what you want to know about me.
I don't know if the Chinese want this information, but if they do, it's welcome to that.
But that's the kind of thing where I'm like, what are you really going to find out? Like, I mean, granted, at Pinups on Tour, we do work with veterans, but we're not dealing with classified information. We're dealing with like VFWs and American Legions. Like, it's a little different. So I guess I kind of, I feel the same way. I'm like, I'm really not that interesting of a candidate to spy on. So,
well, I find it interesting that if this is like the way the Chinese government has decided to spy, that they picked a social media that is pretty much inundated with like 10 to 15-year-olds. Like, can
well,
you imagine being the Chinese national on the other end, going through and watching the videos? Like,
right. Well, it's people like my sister. My sister, I always tell my parents, I'd be like, who's watching her videos? She gets like 50,000 views on TikTok. Who's watching it? They're not even like crafted videos.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're just like weird and odd. And there are a lot of, she does a lot of lip syncing.
Yes, very big on TikTok.
Yeah, she does the lip syncing thing. So, thank God for my little sister. I'd never know what kids do these days. I wouldn't. I'd have no idea. I'd have no idea.
Well, I mean, that's the nice thing. That's the nice thing about interacting with kids, is that you realize there are things going on that you have no clue are going on.
True. So how was your birthday weekend? Did you enjoy yourself?
It was great. I very much enjoyed myself. We did a family Zoom on Friday, and I had a delightful package from Julia and her roommate of a Cold Stone birthday cake, which I'd never had, and it's very good, by the way. At least that one was. Like, it's very nice because it's not pure ice cream, which is what I liked about it. It was like spongy cake that was cold and ice cream.
Oh, good. I was really worried it was going to melt like on your doorstep because of the Florida weather. So I tried to get it delivered like close to dinner time, thinking you guys might be there, and then you weren't home, and I was really paranoid. And then I had Matt call because I didn't want to make it too obvious, and it was a whole thing. But I'm glad it didn't melt. It tasted good. It
was great, and it was great because we had a cake for the Zoom party, which is always nice because then you have a picture you can share, and it just is very cute that way. And then my dad and I spent the weekend on Saturday. There was supposed to be a hurricane here. There was no hurricane. It was like...
That's good.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great, but it was really funny because like it was like there was no wind and no rain at all on Saturday. So like the newscaster was standing in front of the marina and he's like, well, there's nothing. And it was like glass.
So this is supposed to be a hurricane right now.
Right. It was very funny. But my dad and I kind of had a rainy day weekend, even though it wasn't rainy. So we spent a good amount of the day making a chicken pot pie from scratch. So we made the crust, we made the filling, we baked it. It was like a whole 5-hour process. It was delicious. It was huge. It was insane. It was like one of those things you make once a year and you're good, but it was so good. And,
good.
Yeah. And then we watched 3 Marvel movies this weekend, so.
Because why not? It's an endless treasure trove of entertainment.
It is. I subjected my dad to starting the MCU movies last year, and we're slowly but surely working our way through. We're about 2/3 the way through now, so.
Well, that's pretty impressive that you haven't blown through it with 4 months of quarantine.
It's true. Well, you kind of do like... Normally we do one a weekend and it's not every weekend, but like this was like the weekend we did a bunch. So it was perfect. We geeked out. We ate really good. It was like the perfect quarantine birthday that you can have. So,
well, that's exciting.
Yes. And also I can't remember if I mentioned this last one. I got my LED lights for my pool. So I have
I got the photos.
I know.
Got some photos of her pool, and they're lit up in different color LED lights. So
I texted him to my friend, and he said it looked like there was a spaceship in my pool.
That's kind of what it looks like. Yeah,
it did.
Like,
it did.
Coming out of the pool, it's very cool, and if nothing else, it adds ambiance. I mean, I bought a giant floaty, which is how I'm gonna have ambiance. It's a toucan. I'm calling it Toucan Sammy because I want a girl, not a boy.
Okay,
and
nice.
Toucan Sam is a childhood favorite, but he's stepping into the modern era.
Toucan Sam is from Warner Brothers, What is he
No,
from?
Toucan Sam was on Fruit Loops.
Fruit Loops, yes.
What was the saying on Fruit Loops? Yeah, I wanted to say magically delicious, but I think that was Lucky Charms.
That's Lucky Charms, because Fruit Loop was about how they made you crazy. They were loops because it was like crazy.
You'll go loony for Fruit Loops. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up because I would think that would be more seared in my head than it is.
I think you're thinking of cuckoo for Cocoa
Cuckoo
Puffs.
for Cocoa Puffs. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
I can think of all the cereals, but
my dad and I were talking because I was when we did the last podcast, we were talking to Miss Abby Cadabra, and she mentioned the I'm Breastless soundtrack, which was a huge soundtrack in my life too. Like when I grew up, we listened to a lot of Madonna, and especially the Dick Tracy soundtrack. I thought it was amazing, and I have listened to that soundtrack. I rediscovered it in the last couple of years, and I can sing every lyric from that soundtrack, having not listened to it in 20 years. Just singing along at the top of my lungs. And I just find it so amazing how things are like imprinted into your hard drive that you don't even realize are there until you start like singing them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the magic of music, right? Like I guess it brings people back and it stays with them. But it's kind of funny. I mean, I definitely am kind of shocked at the things my brain holds on to, and then shocked at the things my brain is willing to just dump.
Right.
I don't feel like I have a good memory. I would say I actually have a bad memory. Like if we're ranking memories, when women in my family, so my mom or my grandma had Alzheimer's, we joke that my mom's going to get Alzheimer's, but it's so hard to tell people in my family because we're all so forgetful naturally.
Right.
That when you start getting Alzheimer's, it's a little hard to tell because you never remembered anything anyways.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it because like, especially these days, because we're not doing a lot, you have a conversation with somebody and you're like, did I have this conversation with you or somebody else? Because the only thing you're doing is having a conversation, right? You're not like at dinner having a conversation. So there's no context other than like, I'm having the conversation somewhere in my house. So it's like, oh, it's not like, oh, we were in Paris and we had this conversation. Because that would be a little bit more easy to remember because it's different. So
go ahead.
No, I just said I find like I have been saying the phrase, I don't know if I said this before to you, but I've said this. Like
I've said this to other people. I'm starting to repeat myself. Yeah. No, I've actually been watching House Hunters International because it makes me feel like I'm traveling. So I can like watch other places and be like on the streets of Paris and enjoying it. You know, I watched the Caribbean Life House Hunters, watching people get their houses in the Caribbean. It makes me feel, I don't know, like I have the ability to go other places. I will say, I did finish my camper van. It's like done. Yeah, there's like a couple little things here and there, but it's going to go out for the first time next week. So I actually will take a vacation and sit on a lake with my giant toucan floaty and a hammock. I got a hammock.
Nice. So that's very exciting. It's amazing the amount of people that I know that probably would not be camping other than the fact that like the quarantine and COVID are happening, but they all have so much fun when they go camping.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I mean, I had a gig Saturday. It went really, really well. Yeah, and then I don't have a gig until August 28th, so I got some time off. Right. So I'm excited to explore, and first up is a little lake in Utah I'm going to go hang out on. So I'll post pictures to Facebook, I'm sure.
I really do love Utah. It's such a pretty state.
Let's clarify. Do you love Utah as a concept or Utah as a physical state?
I mean, I would say as a physical state. Like, so I'm a big fan of Westworld, and they used Utah for Westworld. So that's what a lot of Utah looks like. I've been to a good amount of the national parks. My stepmom loved national parks, so we used to go to them as like her birthday present. So I've been to Bryce, I've been to the Grand Canyon. My dad and my stepmom went to Zion. Like there's so many national parks there, and it's just beautiful. Like and the air is so clean. Like even where you said you're going, because you said it's by Beaver, and I remember every time I got to Beaver when I was like driving to Sundance or we were doing a show for Pinups on Tour, you would like get out and the air would be just so clear and crisp compared to even Las Vegas.
Yeah. Do you want to know my favorite thing about Beaver?
That it's named Beaver. Or
there are signs. There's signs everywhere that say "I love Beaver." Yes. It's my favorite thing. That's why I picked this campground. So it's like, well, then I have to go through Beaver. And we all know that's like my favorite place.
And Beaver's not that far away, too. Like, No,
from Vegas, it's just, I mean, if you're with somebody with a small bladder, you might have to stop once.
Right.
But it's just like a quick little drive up there. And, that's the nice thing about Utah. And if you're going camping, you're bringing your own alcohol and weeds. So the fact that you can't get that in Utah is less of an issue. Not that I'm bringing weed on my camping trip at all.
Or if you are, you're being very smart and you're bringing the stuff that is not easily detectable.
Exactly. But if I was going to, I'm just saying, like, because that's my main issue with Utah is I love freedom, and it doesn't seem like a very free state in the laws. It's the only state in the entire U.S. that anyone's ever been fined for having pinups on tour.
Oh.
Yeah, we had a venue fined in Utah.
Oh, I kind of remember this story. It wasn't in Salt Lake.
Angry email about it. No, it wasn't in Salt Lake. I'm not going to say where it was because I think then it would be too easy to figure out. But it was a venue, and I was like, I'm sorry, like this has never been an issue. Like I don't know why you live in a state with no freedom. Like,
was it in decency fine, or was it like performance and alcohol together?
I actually wasn't even given like a full rundown. I know we typically do alter our show somewhat when we go to Utah anyways.
Right.
Like for instance, we can't have sex toys at the raffle in Utah. It's just not allowed. Like sex toys in Utah just aren't allowed, which God forbid people have sex. Like I don't understand it.
But you and I both know there's some of the craziest audiences that also have a tendency to consume some of the most alcohol of any of the shows we've done too.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can't get a double shot in your drink, but these people are piss-ass drunk by the time they leave. I don't know how they do it. Honestly, but it's an interesting, I actually really enjoy performing in Utah. I wish the laws made it easier to do so. I believe, and don't quote me on this, and maybe some Utah burlesque performers will let me know, but I believe there was actually like a case that went to like the state Supreme Court about the right to perform burlesque as an art form because it's art and you can't censor art just because you don't like it, right? Like just because it's not your form of art doesn't mean you can censor it. So, but they're also one of the states that my team is doing a lot of research on what states are open. They're one of the states that have the fewest restrictions right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because of actual numbers or if that's just because they don't really want to acknowledge the pandemic or what the reason is. But they definitely don't. They have very few restrictions compared to other states right now.
Yeah, it's very interesting how every state is so varied when it comes to this pandemic. Go ahead.
Well, that kind of brings us to our first article, which is so where is this place? Was this in, I want to say Denver, but that might just be off the top of my head.
Hold on one second. I dropped all of my notes, so I'm going to duck down.
She's going to duck down. I'm going to pull up the picture. So basically, as strip clubs are coming back into business, people are trying to figure out the best way to do that. And this one strip club in Denver actually had a legal battle with the state, and they came to kind of some interesting compromises that'll allow them to stay in business.
Yes, and I actually have an update on this too, because
okay.
It's all changed since then, but we should start with this, which is this came from Mix 1043, which I'm assuming is a Denver radio station. So the name of the strip club is called Players Club, and they were suing the Board of Health, which is in charge of the whole COVID thing, because they felt like their First Amendment and their Fourth Amendment were being infringed upon because like having to wear masks and all of the requirements that were the COVID-based requirements. Now, the First Amendment we all know is freedom of speech. The Fourth Amendment, I actually had to relook up because
it's the 14th Amendment, right?
Oh, no, I believe it was. Oh, was it the 14th in the article?
I think it's the 14th Amendment.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense because
think the 14th Amendment, it makes sense. The Fourth Amendment doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, I was like, unreasonable search and seizure. Why does this make sense? Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, no, so the 14th Amendment is equal protection under the law, no matter what group you fall under. So I guess they say that they weren't being equally protected as a business.
So anyway, the strip clubs sued the Department of Health. They then ended up dropping the case because the Department of Health, they pretty much said, like, listen, we're going to shut you down. I think that's what happened. And they agreed to have the customers stay 25 feet away, and that the girls were right in a strip club.
Right.
And what they agreed to, according to Westworld, which is Denver's version of like the Village Voice or LA Weekly, was that they were going to wear a mask while performing in the club. They were going to create a plexiglass barrier between stage and customers, kind of like a peep show, and that they had to clean the stage floor and pool after each individual performance, and that routines were limited to 10 minutes per girl, which if you're at a strip club, usually it's 2 songs or 3 songs, unless there's like nobody at the club, which would be about 10 minutes. But when you're making all your money just doing a floor show behind a plexiglass barrier,
like how much money are you really getting? These are independent contractors. They're not getting paid to be there beyond the money that they're earning. I have to say, I thought the reason that they were limiting them to 10 minutes was pretty funny. They didn't want them to become over exercised,
right,
and therefore breathe heavily, which would increase the risk of COVID. At what point 10 minutes, 20 minutes, like at what point are you over exercised on the pole? I don't know.
Yeah. So the addendum to this is that I am a member of a Facebook group that is strippers only. And it's like a secret Facebook group that like you have to be invited to get into it.
Okay.
And they post about everything. They're very candid in there. And I would say like 4 days ago, all the girls started posting that they were closing down every strip club in Denver. And then there was like a strip club manager that posted, and he's like, we're close, you need to come in and get all your stuff out of your lockers because the Board of Health could shut us down. And the Facebook group, like, they have girls from all over the country, and they post, there was a post that said, which ones are open, where in the country are people open and where are they not? And like certain girls chimed in on different states and what the rules are, and the rules are fucking insane depending on the states. Like there was one where the girls had to wear their masks on the stage, but if they went over to a table and sat with a guy, they could take off their mask.
What?
I know. I was like, this makes no sense whatsoever. Apparently a lot of the Denver clubs, because they weren't supposed to be doing VIPs, were secretly doing VIPs, and that's why the Board of Health shut them down, was that they were...
because you can't make any money if you're not... VIPs.
Absolutely. And the clubs don't make any money unless they're doing VIPs, because that's where the clubs make money off house fees and the cut that they make off the VIPs. Usually the club never makes any money off of floor dances. Depending on the state, but like usually floor dances are just girls doing stuff on the floor for like $20, $30, $40. So like it seems, from what my understanding of that face group is, that like the entirety of all the strip clubs in Denver are now shut down. But it's very interesting. And also another thing that's happening is a lot of states are not taking out of state dancers anymore, because all the dancers are trying to find the states where they can make money, and strippers move around a lot to begin with. You know, they're very transient strippers. They go where the money is. Like that's the big joke of, they call it the stripper bowl, which is when all the strippers come into town where the Super Bowl is, and they dance for like the 2 weeks before and then like the week after. But like a lot of clubs are now only taking girls who are in state or have like, you know, some kind of like legacy, I guess you would say.
I mean, this whole COVID thing has affected industries that every single industry is feeling it. But definitely, you know, the sex industry, because honestly, like, what's the appeal of a strip club if the girl's behind a plexiglass thing 25 feet away? You might as well watch porn on your TV.
Absolutely. And one of the selling point to stripping is always more contact. So if there's no contact, how can you upsell, right? You know, it's like girls will like allow certain things for like a floor dance. And then when you go to a VIP, they say there's more. They apply it in whatever way they want to. But like, it's the idea that you get more privacy. So in Vegas, the rule was you could never say there was more, because technically that could imply prostitution. But girls would imply that there was more without saying there was more, if that makes sense. Like words can be very the Vice Squad will like split hairs on stuff. Like if you were to say, oh, there's more back there, they would be like, oh, that implies prostitution, when in reality it could just be more touching, right?
Yeah.
But it's that's the selling point, like that you're gonna spend $800 for an hour because you're gonna be able to touch a girl. And if you can't touch a girl, then why are you going to a strip club? Like that's why the guys put the money in the G-string on the stage. You know, they throw it, but they want to sit on the tip rail because they want to be able to put the money in the G-string on the side of their hip, right? Like they
want to touch them.
They want to touch them. They want to feel the smooth skin because maybe their wife doesn't have smooth skin, or maybe they want to touch other smooth skin, or whatever it is, the reason that the guys got into the club. But like, if you take that away, it's just like, it's like a show. It's not a strip club.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's people are there because they're missing a lack of touch. And without the lack of touch, it's just not as entertaining. So we'll see how the strip club business survives along with all other entertainment businesses at the end of the day. There might be some great opportunities to buy some clubs here at the end of this, Kat.
It's true. Ready?
I don't know. Maybe we'll get a club, a Workin the Tease club.
I would love that. A GLD Working the Tease club.
Right. Oh gosh, that would be fun. But we'll manifest that.
Exactly.
But speaking of COVID, it has left a lot of people kind of sexless during this time, not by choice necessarily.
Right.
But it is something that a lot of millennials are actually making the choice to do. And you found an article about this in Vice, right?
Right. And this was an article from 2019 on Valentine's Day. So this was pre-COVID. But it was an article about a millennial who was a 29-year-old male who decided that he was going to be celibate because he decided that dating wasn't fun anymore and dating leads to sex. And he was like, I'm just done with the routine of dating because it's not worth it. And they also, it's this idea that like, you know, they interview a model and he was saying, listen, you know, I was in a relationship, I had amazing sex, and then I got out of it and I went on dates and I had shitty sex and it wasn't worth it. So that other person in the article decided to go celibate too, because it just, the point of having sex just to have sex, you know, in my opinion, I've never been one for shitty one night stands, and nobody wants a shitty one night stand, but I'm not really the person who's really good at one night stands.
No, there are people that want shitty one night stands. Let's not be like, there are people that go out there and that is their goal, to have sex and never talk to that person ever again.
Right. And
that's not a super enjoyable thing for me either.
It's not either. I need to have a connection. I'm a girl like that, but I'm also super emotional to begin with. Like, I'd rather have a good connection with somebody. Like, I never enjoyed like the routine of sex if there's no connection, because it's just horrible for me. And I completely, I mean, it is, well, it just is. Like, it is. Like, I've done it once or twice in my life, and I just know it doesn't work for me. Whereas, like, I can have a conversation with a guy friend, and, like, you know, I was talking to a guy about it once, and he's like, I, long time ago, was able to separate sex from emotions. And I was like, good for you, because I have not figured that out. Like, but
I don't know if it is good. I mean, it's so, I guess it's whatever. Like, if you like to have sex without emotional connection, cool. For me, it is a less enjoyable
experience.
Activity.
Right.
Yes. And I would, it is hard when you're wired, but maybe this is like being wired gay or straight or bi. Maybe being wired to have sex without emotion is a thing. And some people are very satisfied with it. Absolutely. And other people just never will be.
Right. And both are okay. Like, you know, like, both are okay. We're not like shaming the people who are good with one night stands.
No, go get laid if you love being laid. I love having sex. I don't need a monogamous commitment, but I don't like feeling like it's just not worth it if this is the only time I'm going to see you, because like what? It's like, I want to be able to like train you. I want you to be able to train me. I want us to like get in like a routine. Right. And if like this is the only time, then why are we bothering?
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So I in some ways really related to this person who was just so frustrated with the dating that like he was like, I'm tapping out for a while. Because probably that person's not going to be a monk. Let's be serious. That article was written like, I don't know, like a year and a half ago. That person has probably had sex since then. But
interesting, it was follow-up story. We should email them.
I know. We should email them. So
have you gotten laid?
No. But one of the points that they did make in it was that millennials are having less sex than any other generation out there. Which is interesting because like I think a lot of it has to do with phones and everything else, because there's so many other distractions. They say that your sex life goes down so much based on how close your phone is to your bed.
I believe that. I also believe that like there's times where I'm like, I might go out on a shitty date, or I can just watch some porn and masturbate and stay home by myself and not have to deal with the shitty date, right?
Right.
So I think that's the other part of having a phone is you're like, well, endless porn. I don't really need to like go out of the house, you know? The apps have definitely changed things, you know, and I go out, like, I go out with some nice people that are like, why is it so hard? And I'm like, it's just what it is. This is what dating has become. And if we're not enjoying the process, we're not going to get results we enjoy. So you have to find a way to enjoy this new way of dating. And if you're not, maybe it is better just to take a pause and not do it for a second, because if it's frustrating you, you're really not going to get the results you're going for.
Right. And, you know, for me, I always find that like everything, you know, I'm a big follower of the law of attraction. So it's like, you know, I'm like, if I'm bringing in this type of person and I'm not happy with it, I need to do some more self-work so that I get a better mirror relationship on the outside. And you can take that on a metaphysical level, you can take that on a psychological level, whatever works for you. But I'm always of the opinion that, like, if I'm not happy with what I'm bringing in, I need to figure out why I'm bringing in that type of person.
Precisely. Amen. Because we are in control of our own destinies. We're not victims of the dating world. Absolutely not. We are not victims of online dating.
We are explorers.
Explorers. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the thing, is like, you are an alchemist. So dating is really alchemy, right? Like, when you're in the right place, you're on fire and everybody loves you, But like, if you're not, then it's, at least for me, I pull in like people that are just not worth my time. So
really, I've never done that. Everyone I've dated has been great.
Amazing. But like I always say, you learn so much from the ones that, like, you're not happy with. You're like, oh no, I'm never doing that one again,
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I certainly haven't figured it out. Once I do, I will let you all know. I'm working on it, though. I'm working on it. Kat and I actually have a book about dating that involves a lot of lessons of really, like, badass women from history and burlesque. And I kind of, like, I go back to it and I revisit it every once in a while and I add things. And I still feel like we haven't quite figured it out enough to, like, fully release the book. But we're getting close. I think we're getting close.
We are. I remember reading something at some point, and it was someone who was a dating expert, and she had been married and divorced multiple times, like 3 or 4. And one of the points that was made was, hey, I might not be doing this 100% right in the fact that, like, it's not working, but I'm learning so much in the process of it that, like, and also, like, it's an exploration. Like, sometimes I look at my friends who met their husbands in college and they've been together for so long, and I look at them and I'm like, this is insane compared to me. Like, because, like, I'm 20 years down the line and I've dated this person and that person and this person and that person, where they've just had the one person the whole time. But at the same time, they're just different explorations of the journey of, like, getting the best reflection, like, neither of them are right or wrong.
Yeah, I always have a hard time understanding people that pick different paths than me. But at the same time, I really respect that, I'm in my, mid-30s now, and I have friends that have kids that are, like, going into 8th grade or going into high school, and I'm like, how is that possible? I have a dog that's 11, but, like, how do you have a child that's 11? Like, my brain, like, can't process it because my path was so different. Right. But I was on that path. So there's a part of me that's like, you were 2 turns away from being
right, because you got married in college.
I got married in college, yeah. So I was literally, like, I could have been that person. And I remember the day I decided to get a divorce, I remember being like, he's not a bad guy, but if I don't leave him now, we're going to have kids and then I'll be stuck. So I have to leave now. Yeah. So I was like, as soon as you have kids, then everything gets a lot harder to, like,
it's so
walk
true.
away from.
It's so true. I have multiple friends who had issues with their marriage before they had kids. And, it just gets compounded when you have kids, because a lot of them, and I have a lot of guy friends. So I am the guy's girl that the guys talk to me about their wives.
The vent. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the venting girl. And, like, there is an innate fear in a lot of them that they'll lose their kids. They know that they're in an unhappy relationship, but they're scared that, like, if they break up, the mom will take the kids in some way or another. I mean, I can name, like, 4 guys that I know in that relationship right now. But like I said, all of those people, if I knew them when they were married and didn't have kids, we were talking about shit about their wives then, you know? So it's not like any of this is new.
Yeah.
One of the things that I keep saying with this whole pandemic is that some people are having a great time. And some people are having a little bit more of an unhappy experience, and everybody's on their own journey with it. But I have found that the people who are in relationships that seem to muddle through it for the last few years, because like they were like, okay, I'm gonna grin and bear this relationship. The pandemic has seemed to exponentially grow their issues, because now they're unhappy and they're home all the time with the person.
And you don't have your regular escapes. Like, let's say going to the gym and doing your workout class was your escape, or going to this group was your escape, or the guy going to a strip club was his escape. Whatever the escape was, nobody has their escape anymore.
Or going on business trips, so you're only around the relationship half of the time, you know?
That's one of the things that's been toughest for me about having a roommate is I picked a roommate that travels 70% of the time.
Right.
And now he's home all the time. And I'm like, well, hold on. Like, I picked you as a roommate because you're never here.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but it's definitely an adjustment for everybody. And, you know, but then again, you know, like I said, I don't have it figured out. We're working on it. I think through trial and error, we're going to have a great dating book someday put out for you guys.
Yes.
With lots of useful tips that come from icons and fabulous women of the past, as well as our own disastrous and marvelous dating experiences.
Yes, yes. Lots of Mae West. Mae West has some of the best dating experience, in my opinion. Because she really did not give a fuck about relationships, and she only trusts guys on what their actions were and not what they said.
But that's so true though, because you know why? Men speak with their actions. Men speak with. Can we say this again? Men speak with their actions. Like, we try to act like, oh, he told me this. What did he do? What did he do? Because that's what matters. And if he's not speaking with his actions, it's not what he wants to do, and that's okay too. Right. But you don't have to give somebody more energy than they're gonna give you.
It is that I am amazed at the amount of guys that don't want to be the villain in your life, so they will tell you anything but, because they don't have any balls.
That is my curse in life, is the nice guy who doesn't want to be a jerk and then ends up being a bigger jerk because he doesn't want to be a jerk.
So there is a great there's a great YouTube channel called The Take, and they go through archetypes and tropes. That's like pretty much what they do. It's very feminist based, so there's a point where like a lot of the male archetypes, they'll like start to
go a little bad about
they go a little over the top for me. But like the thing about it is like I watch it for screenplay characters and I take copious notes because they're absolutely true. And there's one on the nice guy, and they go through and they break down the nice guy trope. And the thing about the nice guy is really the villain at the end of the day when you start going through it. It's that you know, one of the typical examples is, did you ever see the 500 Days of Summer movie? Yeah, where like some people came out of the movie thinking that Zooey Deschanel was the villain of it because she broke the heart of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. But in reality, if you watch even Joseph Gordon-Levitt's interviews about it, he's like, no, my character was the villain because I wasn't listening to what she was saying. She was very clear through the entire thing that she didn't want a relationship, but the nice guy was like, oh no, you need to be in a relationship. I need you to be in a relationship to define me as a person. And it's fascinating because it's like, the thing about the nice guy is that they pine after this girl, and at some point they get into a situation where they think that getting the girl is what they wanted, but then they're too insecure about it, and the insecurities pop up and it like fucks everything.
Yeah.
Because they're not being who they are. They're not being 100% honest. And if you're not 100% honest in a relationship, then why the fuck are you in a relationship?
Well, this is my curse. Well, not my curse. This is not my curse in life. This is something that I have played out in the past that I will no longer do anymore. But I tend to attract like the nice guys, the Prince Charmings, who want to be perfect.
Right.
And you can, but they can only hold on to that perfect for a certain amount of time.
Right.
And then it's like they're disappointed in themselves, so then they start acting, and then it becomes this like vicious cycle, and then I'm bad for what. I don't need Prince Charming. I really don't. Like,
Right.
I would much rather have like a solid partner, or somebody who makes me laugh, or maybe somebody who's just good in bed. I mean, I don't know. I don't have it figured out.
It's so funny. When I was visiting my sister a couple weeks ago, we were driving up to town, and she's like, "What is the relationship that like you thought was like the best out of all the people you've dated?" And
like none of them.
I went back to my college boyfriend, and she's like, "You always say that," and I'm like, "Because he was so nice." He was so nice. He was like just a genuinely good guy, you know? And I'm like, I don't know what it is that I attracted that energy in college, you know, and not so much on some of my later choices. I'm like, because like I don't think that person in college is like my Prince Charming, and that was like the one that got away, and like, oh my God, like, you know, it's so sad. Like, I could have been.
I'm not with him. I could have been.
No, and it's none of that. But when I look at his actions compared to like the actions of other people I dated later in life, like, he just was a stand-up guy. And like, to me, like that's like the thing that I like the most, when, you know, it's the person who goes the extra mile and does the thing that because it's the right thing, you know?
Yeah. Well, the nicest guy I've probably dated in 10 years since my divorce was married. You met him. Not gonna say his name, but like, he was the nicest guy, and everybody really liked him, but he turned out to be married.
There was extenuating circumstances with that, with the filing of the divorce papers, and Julia's mom, being a super sleuth, found out that they had not
married. Anyways, it was just one of those things where I was like, you're the nicest guy. No wonder you're married. No wonder you're married.
That's true. He was so nice.
He was so
nice. Like, I just remember we went to have dinner, I think on your second date. Was it your second date that we went there, and he bought the fire pit to make s'mores? Do you remember that?
Like, he's literally like, he was the sweetest guy, and everything he did was just so sweet, and it was just so disappointing, and I was like, oh, you know. But
yeah.
I don't know. But the thing is, I've attracted a lot of like really like sweet on paper Prince Charming type guys. Like, that's what I'm into.
Right.
I'm into guys who open the doors and treat me well and whatever. But that's not to say they're not flawed human beings, some of them.
No, I mean, let's be serious. We're all flawed, you know.
What?
I could be talking about my ex-boyfriend from college, and if he was to listen to it, he'd be like, that bitch, the one who broke my heart. You know, like
that kind. Like, why are
we talking about what? Like, you know, I mean,
I still think that like my ex-husband curses me. Cause like, I remember when we broke up, like the last day we saw each other, he was like, he's like, you're never gonna find anybody that's ever gonna treat you as good as me. I was like, ah. I mean, I haven't, but it's not like he treated me that well either. So
yeah, I mean, you know, none of it's perfect, and like the thing about like themes in somebody's life is you're just gonna keep going through them, you know.
Yeah, right. And the thing about dating is, it's supposed to be fun. That's the whole thing. It's supposed to be fun, and if it's not fun, you should do something else, find someone else until it is.
Right, exactly. Or work on yourself until it is, because like, you know, when you get to the point where you're confident, like, I really do feel like people show up You know, when you show up for
You
yourself,
just draw them in like a magnet at a certain
absolutely.
point.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do need to exist in a world where you can go meet people again, but we will someday again.
Someday. Speaking of people that draw people in like magnets, we have a really cool badass woman from the past who is the mother of one of my favorite actresses of all time.
Yes, who is it, Julia?
Mariska Hargitay.
And who's her mom?
Jayne Mansfield.
Jayne Mansfield, that's right.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up a picture of her right here if you want to get in. She is so fascinating, and I learned so much about her going through this information.
This is from Wikipedia, and I was telling Julia before the podcast, like I usually have 3 pages of notes, and like when I was taking my notes, I think I have like 10 pages of notes on this chick because she was so interesting. She was known as the working man's Marilyn Monroe, which was
and like she had some big boobies if you're looking at the thing.
Oh my god, she had big boobies, and she was an amazing at like branding and showmanship and like all of these like marriages that like were promotional marriages, but like she also would consistently measure her boobs like in front of press. She also
why would she do that? Was there a reason she did that?
Because she knew that was her selling point. She knew her rack was the selling point. So she was, during her time as a star, she measured her boobs, and they started out as a 40D, and when she was done with her career, they were somewhere around a 46 double D. So
wait, so she got plastic surgery, or
no? She just gained some weight, I think.
Oh, okay.
But she also was very well known for wardrobe malfunctions. She was consistently having a strap fall down and then and having her boobs exposed to the point where she got backlash because it happened so much. There is a very famous picture that you can Google because it's all over the internet, which is her and Sophie Loren at a party.
And that's so hilarious. Yeah.
Yes. And there was a nipple slip. And you can see Sophia Loren's eyes, who also had big boobies, just like big as saucers as she's looking at her tits.
It's not just big as saucers. It's like, bitch, please, that wasn't an accident. Like, there's like Sophia Loren's face says it all.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Jayne Mansfield was born in 1933, and she did her majority of her movies like in the 50s and the 60s. She did Broadway movies. She was the first major American actress in the post-silent Hollywood film to do nude scenes. She was married and divorced 3 times. She was one of the early Playboy playmates, to the point where her first husband sued for custody of their child because it was considered she was an unfit mother because she posed in Playboy.
Well, she didn't just pose in Playboy. She was Miss February from 1955 to 1958, and then again in 1960. So she was like a Playboy establishment in the late 1950s, early 60s.
Yeah.
But I don't think showing your tits makes you an unfit mother. Like, what part of your kids have to eat off those things? What part of it is unfit?
You gotta remember this is the 50s. Like,
true.
Right. This is the 50s. So she also was really into animals. This is what I wrote this down. This has like not a lot of bearing, but it just was so much fun to me. So she apparently lived, when she first moved to Hollywood to try and be an actress, in a small apartment in Van Nuys. And they lived with a Great Dane, 3 cats, 2 chihuahuas, a poodle dyed pink, and a rabbit.
Yeah, sounds like my first house in Hollywood.
I know. I thought of that.
I was like, that's what you do in Hollywood, right? You live with a bunch of animals and you rescue them. Isn't that what you do?
So she was also a beauty contestant. She was Miss Photo Flash, Miss Magnesium Lamp, and Miss Fire Prevention Week.
Well, and here's something about beauty pageants that I'll tell you. As somebody who has competed in many a beauty pageant, you can't be married and compete in beauty pageants. It is one of the hard and fast rules of the beauty pageant world that you can't. That's why they develop nowadays. They have like the Mrs. system for all those women that want to do it. Because back in the day, like you could not do a beauty pageant. If you were someone's wife, you could not go on stage in a swimsuit and get voted on by other men, right?
Yeah.
Men. So, I thought it was funny that she lied about being married to compete in a lot of these pageants.
No, I mean she did not give a fuck is pretty much the best way to explain it. Like she's very much like a Mae West kind of energy. She had affairs with both JFK and RFK.
Why not? If you're gonna do one brother, you might as well do the other.
Yeah, and they're like, you know, men of power, and they were both good looking too. So like. She played with Jimi Hendrix when he was a session musician because she always did like soundtracks and sang on the movies that she did in the 50s and 60s, which I thought was hysterical, like just random. Her second husband was Mr. Universe, and they both kind of like latched on this idea that they could bolster the publicity of the other one. So she would wear a leopard bikini and he would toss her around his waist and swing her around in the bikini.
Yes, Mr. Universe. Please, Mr. Universe.
Right, exactly. Oh, you're so strong. You're so strapping. And they had a kid together. And I believe it was I think she had 3 kids in total.
She had 5 kids in total.
Oh, she had 5. Okay.
5. 3 husbands, 5 kids.
Okay. So they, at one point, I mean, these stories, like I was like, I can't believe this happened. They went to Jungle World, which was a like big cat safari in the valley somewhere. And
kind of like Tiger King.
kind of like the Tiger King of the 1950s. And in LA, and her son was attacked by a lion.
It's nuts.
It's nuts. And then they sued and they won, and they got somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million, and it pretty much bankrupt Jungle Land, and it was no more because her son was attacked by a lion.
It's like nuts.
It's crazy. Like her signature color was pink. And what they did was they bought a house somewhere in the valley, and she wanted it actually to be purple, but it was too similar to Kim Novak's lavender signature color, because that Kim Novak's color was lavender, and she was like, okay, it's going to be pink. Right. So they painted the house pink. They put in pink fluorescent lights. There was pink fur in the bathroom. There was a pink heart-shaped bathtub. There was a fountain spouting pink champagne, which I think was only for the day of the press. Like, let's be serious.
I was about to say, like, come on now.
Come on. Like, that would not be good. And there was a pink swimming pool. Like, you know, she, like, was, like, really into, like, that whole thing. And then when she passed away, she
had a really horrific death.
She did. So what happened was, like, she didn't like marry 100% well, and her career started to go down, and she also did like burlesque shows. She did she did like a lot of stuff in Vegas, and she would do like a traveling burlesque show where she was like a showgirl and would like take off clothes and like talk and stuff like that. And she did a show in Biloxi, Mississippi, and they were traveling somewhere to do press the next day, and there were 3 people in the front seat who were adults, and it was like 3 a.m, and there were 3 kids in the back seat, and they got into an accident that killed all 3 adults automatically, and the kids were sleeping in the back seat, and every one of them was fine.
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic. I remember when I was a kid, I watched a true Hollywood story on it, like I think like 2 of them were decapitated.
Yeah.
It was really dramatic. And that it was obviously a very sudden end to somebody who hadn't kind of reached the end of her career, which is one of the reasons that Jayne Mansfield, I think, lives on very similarly to Marilyn Monroe, in the sense that when you don't get to finish your story, people kind of wonder how it would have ended. Yeah. And it's also one of the reasons, you know, her daughter, when she went to start her career, she was the daughter of Jayne Mansfield, so that gave her like a leg up, when she was auditioning for things. So, but overall, I mean, the thing to remember about her is that she was a woman who was very okay with making money off the assets that God gave her.
Right.
And had a really fun career doing a lot of very varied things.
Oh, no. I mean, like,
from music to films to comedy, everything.
To Broadway. I mean, she did like everything. Like, fun fact, by the way, I'm going to hop off because I was in Tahoe a couple weeks ago, and we went on a sailing adventure, my sister and I, and we were talking to the second mate when we were sailing, and he pointed to a house and he said, that house is Frank Sinatra's old house, which is on the Nevada, California border up at the top of North Tahoe. And he said, allegedly, Marilyn Monroe died in that house, and they brought her down to LA because that was the rumor in Tahoe that went down, that like he was like, that word on the street that she was in town having an affair with one of the brothers, and they
had to hide it, so they drove her back down to Cali.
Yes. And I was like, ooh, who knew about that? Like,
ooh, fascinating. Well, on that note, that's all I have for you guys this week.
That's all I have too.
So I guess we'll be back with more Better Than Sex, trying to figure out exactly what is better than sex.
Yeah, and there might be something. We haven't come to it yet, but we're still having fun talking about it. So
exactly. And you can check out all of our amazing burlesque videos at wttburlesque.com. Find us on iTunes under Better Than Sex. Please rate and review us if you like us. It always helps us get up there in the rankings and the algorithm. We will be back next week, or actually later this week, with more guests and interviews. And until then,